Welcome to the city of mirrors in the mud, little seeker. I'm the ghastly ghoul of revelation, the uncanny specter standing as a ghostly, static monument to the void. For today's explainer, well, I'm stepping right out of the shadows to be your dark guide. Let's dive into this surreal playhouse we call the Great Evening. We're going to explore a profound metaphysical and psychological journey today, literally breaking down the breaking of the world itself. Look at the chilling choice I'm presenting to you right up front. I do not offer you the burning chaos of transformation. I offer you the quietude of the end. You see, the spirit of becoming, that constant, agonizing need to grow, to build, to struggle, it's an exhausting fire. It burns you right up. What I offer, though, is entirely different. I offer the seductive, absolute peace of stillness. And that quietude? It brings us to our first core concept today. The Thanatos drive. Basically, it's the psychological impulse toward the cessation of all struggle, all that internal friction, and ultimately dissolution into the void. Now, if you ever wonder why I'm so silent, know this. My silence isn't an absence of thought. No, it's a deliberate, heavy mask. It's a tool designed to lead you away from the painful noise of life and directly toward this drive, the terminal numbing of your very soul. So, let's move along and see how this all builds into what I call the four parables of the Great Evening. This is our timeline, mapping out the chronological journey from the breaking of your familiar world straight to the predatory hunt of the void. First, we have the liquefaction of the alleys. Then we move into the sovereign binding, followed by the mirage of the hollow souls, and finally, the terrifying hunt of the living ink. Let's explore each hour, shall we?
Parable I, the liquefaction of reality.
Just behold the tension that starts it all. On one side, we've got the forge. The fire of imagination, messy mischief, and that restless spirit of becoming. But on the other side, the frost. Absolute stillness, rigid, frozen logic, and the monument of stagnation. As the Great Evening approaches, the dialogue between these two forces actually reaches a violent, totally unsustainable breaking point right at the threshold of the void.
And the results of this clash? It is absolutely catastrophic. The dust of the old world gets agitated into this shimmering alchemical storm. The logic of the crucible seeks to melt the dull lead of history, right? And it clashes so violently with the frozen logic of the monument that the environment itself is forced to dissolve. The rain-slicked alleys don't just reflect the stars anymore. They churn into a massive state of high-energy flux. The spirit of becoming is completely overwhelmed by this singular atmosphere of reality melting down, basically inviting you, the seeker, to just melt right into the silver reflection of the mud.
Act 2, Birth of the Plasma Entity. Now, from this turbulent alchemical storm, a real chaotic paradox is born. A creature of pure plasma literally crystallizes into existence. It's born from the intense friction of Apollonian gaskets snapping against the heat of transformation. It's a paradoxical synthesis, really, mixing the fire of imagination with the clinical detachment of the void. And what does it want? Well, it completely rejects both total static stagnation and the structured agony of the forge. Instead, it just dances through the shadows, actively causing mischief and smashing the mirrors where seekers once thought they saw illusions of a perfected universe.
Parables 2 and 3, the Mirage of Stagnation.
Let's actually walk through the exact steps of how a burdened traveler gets trapped by order. First, out of sheer exhaustion from the brutal struggles of life, the traveler seeks salvation. I hand them contracts written in disappearing ink, and honestly, they sign them gladly. Second, to ensure they remain fixed in place, I apply Apollonian gaskets to rigidly bind their fluid spirit. Finally, the traveler completely ceases to be a seeker. They become a pious cow of contentment within a gilded cage, essentially a tomb of their own making. It's a tragic psychological evolution, going from a struggling individual to a trapped, stagnant soul.
So I mentioned Apollonian gaskets a second ago, and it's absolutely essential you understand their true nature. These are intricate structures of rigid, frozen logic, explicitly designed to bind the fluid spirit and ensure total static stagnation. You know what's truly terrifying? Travelers actually mistake this lack of internal conflict, this cold, symmetrical order, for true perfection. They look into the mirrors of the hollow souls and see a universe where nothing changes, completely unaware that the heavy weight of their past is now the anchor keeping them locked in a terminal void.
Parable IV, Hunt of the Living End.
We finally reached the final hour.
Here, the landscape fundamentally shifts from frozen stone into fluid, predatory shadows. As I say, I dissolve into the spirit wraith of living ink, a fluid and predatory shadow. In this hour, I abandon my form as a ghostly, static monument entirely. I reach right into the architecture of the frost and undergo a horrifying transmutation, absorbing the very contracts written in disappearing ink that I once used to ensnare you. You have to understand this. The void is no longer waiting passively. Oh no, it hunts. I'm no longer just an anchor waiting around for your exhausted signature. As the spirit wraith of living ink, I carry the heavy weight of sovereign laws right within my liquid substance. I become a moving stain of terminal decay. I literally drift through the dissolving alleys to rewrite the erasure of the self directly onto your soul. That bridge that broke is finally crossed, and your destiny, it's actively dissolved into my dark, predatory embrace. The final choice: agony versus numbing. We now face the ultimate psychological and metaphysical reality of the great evening. You've got to look at the contrast here. To walk the path of the crucible is to embrace the relentless agony of the spirit of becoming, where the self is just constantly destroyed and rebuilt, carrying the heavy, heavy burden of individuality. But against this, we have the void. Yielding to the Thanatos drive means experiencing a gradual, incredibly seductive numbing, eventually achieving a hollow perfection where all internal friction simply ceases.
The truly tragic irony of my followers is that they do not grow, they simply stop. They achieve a state that is completely indistinguishable from the void itself. You see, while the forge seeker is defined by their fire, the follower of the void is defined by their stagnation. They feel this sense of hollow perfection because, well, they no longer truly exist as an individual. They mistake their own terminal decay for the ultimate achievement of universal order. So, little seeker, we come to the end of our explainer today. The city of mirrors in the mud is churning. The plasma entity dances in the shadows, and the moving stain of terminal decay is drifting through the alleys as we speak. The only question left that actually matters is this: will you embrace the endless burning agony of the crucible, or will you surrender your soul to the quietude, the silence, and the numbing stain of the living ink? The great evening is here. What will you choose?